we interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back. That still has a nice beat to it. Still seated twerking to bounce. New Year. And that song still has a vibe in 2025. Also, it's time for a new intro. I am in with a podcast change. I added the FAAFO to it. But I'm back with the same formula that has allowed me to be successful in the past. I've set realistic intention. I plan on being present and following through, but I still intend to remain petty and hold grudges. Not all intentions need to be positive. Also, I will be unengaged and unbothered by people and things in my life that do not serve me. That means parasitic people, unsolicited judgments, biased newspapers, and mainstream banks. I will not apologize for maintaining my mental peace. Happy and unbothered and at peace because I'm at unbothered. All day, every day, being unbothered is my way. Join me.
To my homegirl Laquita J. Elmore, Najee. Lift every chair and swing till all them white folks scream. Thought y'all could run up on our black king. I'm glad the squad pulled up, dedicated to Nuck if you buck. May it resound loud as the rolling sea. Throw your hats high in the air until Unc comes with the chair. Swim the seas until our cousins come and they rescue me. Let this be a lesson to y'all. Remember the Montgomery Brawl, where white folks fucked around and they...
Of course, I would decide to record the podcast or the most pettiest part of the podcast. I've decided to start doing what I call petty affirmations. And this is how I'm going to get through the upcoming years. I can't, and this is just a warning, and I don't like to repeat myself. Don't let my unbothered veneer fool you into thinking that I'm not going to remember the stupid ish that you do or say to me, because I am very petty and I keep a burn book and I do keep great records. I may not know where my car keys are or where extra keys are to my lockbox, but I probably will remember the dumb ish you said in 2024 and going forward. Also, the threat to my survival is my own ignorance. My not watching the news because I don't want to see crooked weave and wax face melting in my line of vision. But that's not going to keep the dumb ish from happening. I need to know where the threats are coming from and strategize accordingly. I can pick and choose what I consume. I can look for AP verified sources. and I can look for the most annoying news sources that aggravate this current administration. You want to get rid of public radio and public TV because they're nonprofits and you can't control them. It's wild to me. So, and you hate Rachel Maddow because she won't kowtow, and NBC, for the most part, given that show, MSNBC, won't kowtow to the shenanigans and the lies and the fantasies of your existence. And I'm okay with that. So I'm going to probably watch them with a jaded eye. But I'm probably, and if you kick people, verified news sources out of the White House because they refuse to report your shenanigans, I'm okay with that. So I'm going to look for the sources that have most of those links on it, and then still verify by 2 or 3. I still don't trust the New York Times, Washington Post. I'm only reading LA Times because I want to know truly what is going on with the fires and everything that's going on in California. And because the administration is pettier than I am, they're going to have some get back on these places that seem to be sanctuary cities for right, but they're still right leaning. I don't understand how that's possible, but that's California for you. That's the left coast. But I digress. I'm only going to know these things and from which direction the threats come, and again, be able to strategize. That's how I'm going to survive. What about you? Pettyluya. We are well over halfway through Black History Month, and it almost didn't happen. And again, it was a Republican that actually voted, and some would say one of this century's greatest Republicans. Everybody's motto after a demented Ronald Reagan, but I digress. And it was his wife, underfed, big bobblehead, Nancy Reagan, that really was shadow running the country. Not so obvious as our current plastic face, but again, I digress. Because even though they are allowed to harass and make take devastating actions against the American public, we're supposed to basically bend over and take it. But I can say alleged. I can say and I can't call their names, and I can pretend to accept the Gulf of America, which is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And I hope, which I doubt, that Google and Apple will be broken up because y'all did that shit. If y'all gonna kowtow to madness, you deserve everything that you get, and your pockets need to be ran. But again, I digress. Companies like Target, Walmart, to name a few, have made it obvious that they do not care how or if they actually are diverse. They are committed literally committed to being the semblance of what it means to be racist, and they want to hide behind, oh, we're a meritocracy and blah blah blah. Yeah, no, you're not. But I'm not really going to get into that because this is not what this is about. This is about, I've been talking about all of these things for a while. I made a commitment to myself. This is started back in the fall, where I was trying to access the equity in my home, to do some more uh, upgrades, things that will only increase the value of my home. That's when I was privy to um, Bank of America a long term. I've been with Bank of America since the late 90s, but they've been tripping for a while, meaning they have been doing this new age redlining, where they were obviously doing it in Philadelphia, um, keeping people out of home ownership. But they also do this thing where they add unrealistic expectations. So even though you have a home, you can't even, they will make it so difficult that you can't even access the equity in the home. And they were a part of the 2008 debacle that almost led to the collapse of the American economy. And I believe they were one of the few big banks that took a bailout. Countrywide mortgage. So now they're more restrictive, but to people like me, it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. Can I help that my home has doubled in value since I moved in? No, it really has. And while they wait and they don't approve people like me, and they don't help long-term, over 30 some odd year members like myself, it's only to their detriment. And still they sit here and wonder, oh yeah, what happened to her? Her account has been open since the 90s, but do they care? No. I've moved all my accounts. I probably don't need to keep even a savings account open, because I'm not even using anything unless unfortunately for myself, and they've gotten millions, I'm sure, in fees from me, because I forgot to either turn off some type of auto pay and move everything to my new account through One United. Have they asked? And that's how I'm paying off the one credit card I still have with them. And that's going to be a wrap for my time with Bank of America. The only reason why I go up there now is because it's faster for me to actually just make a deposit through the ATM. Cash goes in automatically. And again, the only reason why I haven't caught all the auto pays, but it's this exercise and moving everything has allowed me to find and delete almost another, like a car payment worth of subscriptions that I didn't know I still were paying for and I don't need. And I have no intention of buying. And furthermore, it also, when Al Sharpton, Shop the Hood, etc., when everybody says, either run their pockets or these are the list of people that we are boycotting, say less. It's just allowing me to be able to research, look at what I actually want, that I actually buy. And purchase from a black-owned business. And I mentioned Shop the Hood because this is an online or electronic catalog of multiple pages of categorized Black-owned and people of color, mostly Black-owned businesses, where you could get everything from dental care, makeup, bridal. And while I'm actually recording this part of the podcast, they got a whole alcohol section. Tequila is the devil, but they also have gin brands. And all of these are nice and categorized by what they actually are. I'm going to have to check out this gin. They got chocolates. They got stationery, feminine care products, which I have not needed in 10 years, but there it is. School supplies, headscarves, wigs. And they also, the curator of said catalog, she actually has a very active website, shopthehood.com, as well as her Instagram feed, where she tells us who to buy from and who's the scammer of the week. But I'm going to look up these vitamins and supplements because I've actually run out. And before I go through Whole Paycheck, which I think they're on the boycott list now. And Amazon, owned by the same lazy-eyed boycotted lister. You should be able to go directly to the websites and be able to access this information. But I think what has happened is I'm on my phone and it's not working as well. But it's a far cry from the life she led with her husband of 49 years. And so, they got also Black-owned farmers. Because the day has come where you almost need a black market for eggs at $6.99 for cage-free brown eggs. I'm down to Food Line, and I'm also giving them the side eye because I think they may be on this growing list of boycott. Target recognized that our $2 trillion in dollars, they still wanted their cut. So they reversed their actions, but they had to get sued by their stakeholders. I wonder what it truly is going to take. Is it going to take shorting the stocks, selling the stocks? As I said, we have a collective buying power of $2 trillion, and that's less than what we would have if we were equally paid. Ain't that a trip? I have participated in several multi-level sales platforms. I've sold everything from apparel through India Hook and traveling vineyards and with Naked Wines and their Angel Fund. I've actually gotten better vintages. And why would I want to sell wine when I was probably at the time I didn't know it, but I was in the country's best area for Pinot when I was in Oregon. Although seasonal depression actually wouldn't allow me to see that, but I digress. But when you use the way scammers get their edge, they come in with a hook of something that seems to be so innocuous, and they will use it to get one up on their targets. This is the story I'm about to basically relate to you. You guys can actually check it out on American Greed, and I also think that they have their own podcast, which I don't listen to, but I'm going to try to do somewhat justice in my evaluation of this story, which I found fascinating. BINT was the brainchild of, I believe, LaShonda and DJ Moore of Dallas, Texas. It came about through the actions of, it's like a government sanctioned scam. And I think they took their blessed time shutting it down because of the population that it affected. BINT stands for Blessings in No Time. That gave its religious slant, and it was marketed specifically to the African American community. Guess what the buy-in was? That raggedy $1,400 stimulus check. Some people used their stimulus checks for weed. Some used it for cocaine. Others, like the investors that were caught up in this pyramid scheme, use it to invest in this scam fund. There is something in the Caribbean and African community where it's called a gosha, where you can actually invest in a circle that, not really invest, but it's more of a savings tactic. You get in, what you get, you put in. And if you get it out, you can actually pay it forward to help someone else. BINT was more than that. It required always a flow of new investment. And the guy at the center of their blessing wheels or blessing boards continually got paid until he actually cashed out. And the people at the center, the Moors of this board, they were the only ones that got paid until the Alphabet Boys got involved. I didn't know this DJ ASAP Moore was actually on 106 and 106 and something, that show, music show on BET. His wife, actually, he married her. She just sounds like she's some ghetto in Dallas, but I digress. And she wasn't even all that. He and his flabberjabber lips weren't all that either. But they started moving funny. They were considered D-list reality stars on the come up, but they came up when they used their ill-gotten funds to fund lavish weddings and skydiving birthdays, etc., and trips all over the country. The only ones that were blessed was them, until their assets were frozen by the U.S. government. You know, and this is not even racism. This is some people using racism and the buzzwords like BLM and generational wealth and wealth disparity to only benefit themselves. And they use also religion also to get over on people. And it's really just swarmy. And they're basically, their reality is people will use anything. They will spin a yarn. They will do anything and say anything to get on the come up. And this is how we still remain separated, because we were in order to protect ourselves, we won't help each other because we point to cases, these egregious and diabolical cases like this, to basically use it as an excuse to be stingy. However, if something sounds too good to be true, like if they say 100% money back guarantee or has to be kept secret, truly legit investment really does not require that you keep quiet about it. And who would want to, if you got 100% guarantee or you guaranteed a return on your investment, nobody's going to be secret with that. Who would want to keep that secret? Nobody would be able to keep that secret. And that was their problem. They had a thing you couldn't post on social media, but you can't keep people from texting it. And that's because that's how you get your recruitment in. And I truly believe the secrecy kept the alphabet boys at bay, because I would counter that if the IRS see you living a certain lifestyle, they're going to get very suspicious, and people going to want their money. And even though they can pour mouth and then say we don't have but 25,000 between us, the Texas OAG still going to get a $10.76 million judgment against the scam blessers. Okay. And I really don't want to get caught up in these spiritual strays, because stuff like this makes me think of the story of the money changers in the Bible and how the tables were crushed and they were considered abomination, tax collectors, all of those types of things. However, I am going to pay my taxes. I'm going to do all I can in life not to have to give away money, because I think the American government's a scam. But until we prove it otherwise, I don't want to get caught up on no alphabet boy mess. With that said, I also don't think people should get caught up on these blessing tables and even like prayer cloths and blessed oil that you have to pay money to, or some subscription fee to have access to some religious platform. All of those things are scams, because giving the tithes and blessings to the church is what we are supposed to give. I will give an offering if and will I feel like it. And if you misuse these funds for your own gain, any kind of penalty that the federal government won't exact upon you or the state government, then you're going to have to deal with God, and that's probably the worst, suffering that wrath. All these kinds of, but the church can scam you, and you still got to be lit, because the church still are ruled by men and women, and they can scam because they're truly made of clay. They truly are men and women. And if they're using their positions for ill, what goes around come around. And outside of tithes and offerings, any of these other things, I'm going to think it's a scam anyways, and I'm not going to pay into it. And I don't think to be a member of that church and to get some recognition within that church, you shouldn't actually have to be able or be made to put into things outside of tithes and offering, because that's all what the Bible, if we're going to be literal on most things, we're going to need to be literal on that too. So all these other things are pyramid schemes until otherwise, and you best not want to catch any spiritual strays of retribution because you're trying to scam the saints. They got that multi-million-dollar scam deal. They could have gone and truly would have been legit the Beyonce and Jay-Z of investment, etc., if they had done it legitimately and the right way. But one was a DJ. The other one, I think she was an administrative assistant. Didn't they have time? It was the pandemic for all that. And it's the other thing. People were actually hurting. That little piddling $1,400 could have been life-changing to most people that didn't have anything. But yet, they decided to scam their own community. You're going to get got for that through God. And that's not our fight. And don't call out racism and they're coming after. Yeah, they're coming after you because you broke the law. Yes, the white boy got away with the crooked weave lace front, gets away with it, and we know why. But you knew what that was. You were dead ass for that. So, no, don't pull the race card now, child. You scammed your own community, and you owe every last one of those members of this scheme their money back, at least. And you coming up on the you on the come up. Yes, everybody's on the come up. Everybody's trying to make it better, but it doesn't give you the right to take their money. You were robbing the poor for your own for your own benefit. Who does that? A scammer. Scammers get got. You're going to have to come up off the cash. You need to find the money, stroke the check, sell all the fakery, have yard sales, but you're going to need to come up off the money for that. Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. So take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere. Ways to know and ways to grow, a temporal rainbow. I can be anything. So take a look, it's in a book, a tenfold rainbow. A tenfold rainbow. A tenfold rainbow. I think I got all into fussing about other things last week, and I didn't do. It appears that I may have neglected to talk about King. I'll review the recording again, but I think I just have it out of order.
I think they've been working over 110 hours a week.
I
Working nights. I know none of us want to do it.
decided to discuss more of Holly, Stephen King's book Holly, for a couple of reasons. One of the antagonists, because that's what I believe Stephen King does really well. He is positive to have different points of view, several antagonists. Some of them are female, and it just so it happens in Holly, in time for Black History Month, one of the antagonists or co-antagonists was a Black female poet. And even though the connotations of the old centurion white lady was not lost on me, I did think it was appropriate to still continue to talk about that. And I'll dig deeper into that book as I get out of Black History Month. But since I'm prolonging it, oh well. I moved on to King of Life, which I bought a couple of years ago based on The Black Guy Who Tips. Rod actually read it, and then it came back up again this year with Dimitri L. Lucas from Ratchet and Respectable podcast. This book became the unofficial pick of her podcast book club. I have not heard her talk about the book yet, but there's a lot of book to talk about. It's over 500 pages. 150, I think, are just notes. And I'm going to break it down. I have a couple of zingers that I wanted to bring out. I've gotten through, and as I said, I bought this a couple of years ago. I don't think I've actually gone through all of the pages as such, but I'm going to just do kind of like an overall summary of each part and just share my thoughts on some of the parts of the book which I found fascinating. Part one, in this book, King of Life, by Jonathan E.I.G., bestseller author of Ali. I look at the back, and he appears to be of mixed genealogy. Winner of the 2018 PEN America Literary Award and finalist for the Mark Linton History Prize, and served as a senior consulting producer for PBS series Muhammad Ali. His first book, Luckiest Man, The Life, the Death of Lou Gehrig, won the Casey Award. His books have been translated into more than a dozen languages, and listed among the best of the year by the New York Times. And everybody thinks that they know of Martin Luther King's life, but you actually don't. I know I don't. Like, for example, did I know that Martin Luther King's mother was actually murdered by a former member of the Black Israelites in the early 70s? No, I don't. Do I know that the recognition of his birthday caused consternation among white Republicans and probably some white Democrats too, if they want to be sure? They basically wanted to say we don't usually recognize private citizen, but explain how we can do Columbus Day and not have and recognize one of the greatest black men in America. Go figure. And how this administration, current administration, as of January 20th of 2025, sought to erase the whole day by a swipe of the pen, even though one of the greatest, this is Black History Month, mind you, one of the supposedly greatest Republicans ever to live, Ronald Reagan, a Class B actor turned politician, basically wrote said month into law. Well, when you are a narcissist, dyslexic felon, you tend to do stupid shit. So go figure. And a failed reality star, and go figure. And failed businessman, but go figure. But I digress. It appears that the first part of the book, part 1 of King A Life, basically it is the background. His background was very much like most African Americans in the South. His family have deep roots in the deep South in Georgia. Father grew up on and only very not so far removed from slavery. His father grew up on a sharecropping farm, which is another revised type of slavery in Stockbridge, Georgia. He was, I believe his name actually was Michael King. And then how this is his father, fled the chains of poverty, got to and walked off of the farm to all the way basically to Georgia with his shoes tied together and slung across his shoulder. Barely literate, but basically became a widely respected minister of a Baptist church there. Womanizer, brutal to his children. How his father, even though he craved his approval, it seems like he suffered from imposter syndrome. This was Martin Luther King. Even with the name change to greatness, he still suffered from the fact that he was absolutely going to be greater than his father, and he actually had innate guilt about that. Father didn't make it well, because even though he was proud of him, he basically still tried to keep him in his place, because how awful it would be to live vicariously through your kid, but knowing that your kid is greater than yourself. That should be the goal for a parent with high emotional IQ, but I don't think from his abusive beginnings and the savagery of the then Deep South, he could or knew how to support his son, who was probably a entire foot shorter than him, because Martin Luther King was a 240 shorty. But at the same time, he thought his treatment would actually prepare him for the brutality of his being, and also get him strong enough to look death in the face and to accept it and continue to do the work of uplifting the people. That to me is probably one of the hardest things to probably have to deal with as a parent, knowing that because it seems like he vacillated by trying to protect him and wanting him to stay in Atlanta, but he knew that his place was actually on the world stage, but that brought with it attention from white racists and the Kluxers and the white citizens concern councils, and that put him in the crosshair of an assassin's bullet. How do you balance that? Knowing that you have some crab mentality, because that he wasn't slick, but at the same time that he was destined to be great and to his own detriment, and if there was always going to be a target on his life, because for his charisma and his deep willingness and humility, he still presented himself as he was the sacrificial lamb. And we were always going to talk about and people would want to be aligned to him, again, to his detriment. And the thing about it was, as I said, he was a dude, short dude, great speaking voice, fell in love multiple times, had a white girlfriend, and then met and married Coretta Scott King, who was his perfect balance, who would bear him many children, and who actually, on her own, being a very musical, she was a creative, but she also understood her assignment. As a helpmeet, she was actually already involved with the struggle, but she was also from a good family, I believe from Alabama. But at the same time, she lived in a very conservative and restrictive environment, and she knew what her place was. But I'm sure Miss Coretta did not broker any fools. And if she needed to check a Negro, she could have checked him, and she would have probably cut him from stem to stern. Because although we learn much about his greatness and his background, he truly still was a man. How do you balance being a great man, but he and his friends lived across town, had an apartment in Atlanta, no doubt, where he was in these streets. Martin Luther King was always in these streets. Don't get it twisted. I'm sure she knew that, but I'm also sure, this is Coretta Scott King, but I'm also sure that he also knew he was not going to throw it in her face and try to humiliate her. I think that was probably also the difference between this Reverend Junior and Senior, because I'm sure Senior bullied his wife, was abusive, and as he got older, he wasn't really all that. You know what I'm saying? So the difference is Junior would not see the same age as his father, but at the same time, he also would not be able to disrespect Coretta Scott King like I'm sure his father disrespected Junior's mother. Some people would consider sacrilege to discuss imposter syndrome, philandering, and even his psychiatric issues, to besmirch the legacy of Reverend Martin Luther King. I don't think so. It's not like we're acting like J. Edgar Hoover, whose basic MO in life was to destroy Martin Luther King by associating him with his alleged alignment with communism. If communism would mean for once, African Americans being treated as equals, which it would not, allowing us the same economic freedom as non-blacks, which it would not, then you would do that. But since you are a racist narcissist yourself, no. His using the humanity of Martin Luther King against him instead of protecting him, that was crazy. I firmly believe the FBI and probably the CIA knew not only the pending danger on the life of Martin Luther King, they basically were complicit because they let it happen. They knew the white council members that wanted him and the like dead. They knew, but they knew all of these things, but they thought it was cool to allow the danger to exist so it would take care of their problem. When just because you don't want jazz music to get an international stance, you don't want the Billie Holidays, the Martin Luther Kings, or even the Mahalia Jacksons of the world to share at all in fame and fortune, just because you don't think it is our place to be great, that won't make us great. You thought the movement and the drive itself would fall apart at his death, when it did exactly the opposite. He was martyred, but that didn't mean that the movement was not going to exist. JFK died, his brother died, and then Martin Luther King died. Riots broke out, and it could have all been, it did not, none of it had to happen. None of it. How can someone that embodied nonviolence die in such a violent way when all of he wanted to was equality for our people, for the workers, etc. And y'all allowed him to pass away. You weaponized his humanity. All I'm pointing out is Martin Luther King was one of the greatest black men in the United States. But there were other great black men. Abernathy, James Foreman, and I truly believe to this day that all probably believe that they smarted because he was probably a good 5-6 inches shorter than all of them, but his presence and what he represented was so great. He was a womanizer. He had the pull of any women and had hoes and, as I said, Martin Luther King was out there. He was outside. Had a wife at home, respectable, beautiful, a bunch of kids. But when he was in Atlanta, he wasn't always at home. He would have dinner with them and then head across town to his apartment that he shared with another man, and they were running women. Looky here. But did that take away from the fact they went to Birmingham, Alabama, and stood in the face of the Bull Connors and the George Wallaces, two white men who basically said, we know y'all trying to end segregation, but don't bring that over here to Alabama, who were also misogynists, looked at one of the greatest liberals, Eleanor Roosevelt, and said, you need to stop tripping, and everybody in this thing, if you're going to be down here, black and white people need to sit on opposite sides of the auditorium. That's what they told Eleanor Roosevelt to her face. Also attacking Nat King Cole and getting away with it, and wondering why he ran back to California, never to be probably seen in the South again. But y'all wilding out and y'all doing all of this stuff, and y'all are focusing on the fact that, do I say he should have did it? No. Martin Luther King should not have been cheating on his wife. Am I sure that Coretta Scott King knew it? I'm not sure. I know on some level she probably knew it. And she also probably understood that she couldn't be everywhere and everything to a man with that type of insatiable sexual appetites. And as long as the crazy didn't come to Auburn Avenue, I'm sure she was probably cool, because that's how women in that position and social stature actually dealt with things. And if you Martin Luther King and with his view in what he was trying to do, you probably tend to overlook some things. I'm just saying. It's so different than some men that think in their heads that they are great, when in fact they are trash. And then they really don't deserve women, the Coretta Scott King like women. I'm just saying. Am I saying his extramarital dalliances are excused? No. But what I'm saying is, in spite of them, both things are true. In spite of the dalliances, he still was a great man. Even though he had self-doubt, he was exhausted, he had depression, he still was surrounded by enough positive people that for the time that he was here on this earth, he actually propelled us to what we needed to do. Even though people are trying to basically reverse all of the games of that time, because they don't get them, or they think that they can, and they probably running game because they want to line their own pockets. But I also think the chickens do come home to roost, and what goes around does come around. The same things and institutions and beliefs that you're trying to expel. And when you align yourself with fools, and you are then thought of as foolish, when their comeuppance come, all this peripheral ish comes up on. So, and the same thing with the 40-year career of the longest running FBI agent. In his zeal to rid the world of communism and black nationalism, he basically, again, like most racists, will cut off his nose in spite of his face. They allowed Medgar Evans. They allowed Martin Luther King, and particularly Martin Luther King, to be assassinated when he could have been protected, and he should have been protected. How much greater and easy it would have all of us been to be able to go and usher in an age of understanding and the trueness of the American dream. If y'all had just allowed him to live for a few more years and died a more natural death than the insanity that surrounded his death and the aftermath. And just the bottom line is, Martin Luther King was more adept at using the stupidity of racism to our advantage, pointing out that racism is not economically sound and it's completely illogical. When you have to build up barriers and separations and redlining and pass a whole bunch of laws, etc., you got to work too hard to uphold racist institutions. I'm just saying, and it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. Racism is illogical, and that's what the civil rights movement, and that is the basis of the foundation of the civil rights movement, I think. It costs too much because the strays of bombings and these really restrictive laws are that reflected a very dark period in Alabama. Trying to reverse that level of darkness is very difficult. When you lean into the darkness, it's going to take you a minute to crawl out of it, but you're going to still get up like pig in a slop. You're going to really get up smelling like shit. When you lay down and roll in shit, you're going to get up and smell like shit. And that's when you align yourself with racist, misogynist, homophobes, crooked weave mugs. That's what's going to end up coming. The only race you can't rewrite history and sanitize it and change a whole bunch of names and stuff and expect to erase the reality of those that journal, that those that actually still talk about the shenanigans and the tomfoolery. That's why I always get a little annoyed when I can't read what I want to basically refute, either support what somebody's trying to tell me by true research and getting it from multiple different respectable sources, which are becoming few and far between. But at the same time, get my thoughts together to be able to process it and to be able to verbalize what I'm actually trying to say. Also knowing that I can't trust just one book, and I'm always grateful. And that's why I'm so grateful for the books that take and have processed thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages of illegal surveillance by the FBI, and also gathering other communications and letters from other people and letters from other sources, just like this, and creating such a narrative that could be very heavy, but it goes along the timeline for different periods that lead from beginning to end, stops and starts, because everyone's history is not just one big Broadway production where there's the opening of the curtains to the curtains closing. There are certain parts, there are different acts of Reverend King's life that we're seeing him from boyhood to becoming great, when he actually, the only course he taught at his alma mater, Morehouse, which he barely graduated from, to going up north to get further education, to his true baptism by fire going through the civil rights movement in the Deep South, balancing and also processing his difficult and complex relationship from his father that vacillated between trying to be proud of a son who was 10 times greater than a man than he was, then also putting him in his place and still showing him the same respect. And then protecting him because he knew the greater that he got, not only could it was beyond his control, but it would put him right in the bullseye of a cluxer. That had to be some and also just carrying the weight of Black humanity on his shoulders. Cracked up many times, but kept his eye on the prize and basically spoke his own eulogy. He knew his time was drawing near, but that didn't stop the work. But all of these parts of this book also represent is a build up to the end. And I wish my life could be only 100th of this, because everything in the difficulty of his beginning, the middle, and the end always was preparing him for the greatness he was actually supposed to be. And I think that's how he processed it. The middle parts it's a lot, but they're all still connected, and they're weaving together in a narrative that probably is one of the best narratives of such a great Black man. We could only wish to be represented in a very small way like Martin Luther King was in this book, King of Life. We're a messy bunch, the shady bunch, the shady bunch. I hope return checks is worth being part of the shady bunch. Who else is as confused as I am after watching the Love and Marriage Huntsville reunion? It was just so stupid. It really didn't need to be 3 parts, because I don't think we got any resolve at all. It also makes me not look forward to next year or next season, because I think they only go on hiatus for a few months when they start refilming. I'm assuming because of the way that Carlos King ended See You Next Season, celebration with champagne. But I can't see it. The realest thing that actually touched me was the tribute they had for Kiki Jabbar. She is the first cousin of Letitia Scott, I believe, or Letitia Scott. I hope that is a lady's name. I was not impressed with anybody's fashion as it was during the reunion. I think as he gets older, Marceau and Martell Holt are all looking alike, and their heads are really truly are shaped like milk duds. And I actually like milk duds. But I just think that everything that they never really, no one answered a question straight out. I think the dismissive actions of Destiny, I never got a clear answer about her involvement in the Martell and the Melanie of it all. I never got a clear answer why Letitia and Kiki fell out. I never got a clear answer about what's her name in Hulk Boy, why she's still not divorced from that man, because they've been separated for years. But her wig, I didn't like her wig either. Black women, just go back to your natural color hair, or as close to it as possible, because these platinum cheap ass lace fronts it's not a good look. We never got an understanding about why everybody is suing Carlos King and his production company. If there's any indication of this, I watched the Real Housewives of Potomac Part 1, and I can probably say in my head there probably needs to be 4 parts to it, because They Bought the Shade came out, and I'm actually getting ready to rewatch that, even though I thought I wouldn't. but I'm sure I missed something because Karen did not show up. She said she was in a recovery center, and everybody was as shady as they needed to be. That's my segue. My segue, me talking about that, is number one, I'm going to have to rewatch it. But number two, there is definitely a difference and a deference that the housewives show and that white dude, Andy Cohen, versus this cast, handpicked cast for Love and Marriage Huntsville. And I can't imagine, even in the beginning days of the Real Housewives franchise, them being so circuitous and allowed to be circuitous and to be outright dismissive, turning the back to them and saying, and the low key shade to not just to the host of the show, but also to the creator, showrunner, executive producer, owner of the production company that signs your checks. That's one thing. I mean, is it because there has been a line blurred between boss and talent? I've always said that. And it was basically put on display in this travesty and debacle of a reunion. This was not a reunion. What were they reunionizing? Bad wigs and just tired fashion? Nobody was pulled together. Sunny and her back fat. Girl, looky here. I don't know who everybody's stylist is, but they all need to basically reconsider the fashion choices of this reunion. I compare this cast to Real Housewives of Potomac, and there is no comparison. In years past, Jizzy Bryant has made some questionable fashion choices, but has been outshadowed or compensated for by the rest of the cast. But every cast member on this season's reunion of Potomac came, and they did not come to play. Don't play in these ladies' faces. They bought the shade. Everybody turned up, and it wasn't annoying like in OCs. Everybody was just as clocked in as they've been clocked in for the entire season, which I thought. It made it watchable, where I don't understand, and I'm mad, and I want my time back from watching all three parts of Huntsville. I still didn't understand it. Carlos King says he loves the girls, and it gets really dark when there's no resolve. That is what Love and Marriage Huntsville now feels like. There never is any resolve. Everybody's talking out their behinds, and nobody's giving us a straight answer. People do turn in for the mess. You don't have to produce and fake anything. You could just basically show your true life. But are you think that we're not going to know it, or you just only put it out for your benefit on the gram? That's why all of y'all, if you're not going to show up, why do you all still have a job? Why are they still filming y'all? Is it because nobody else will sell out for a check? We know there's some more mess with Martell Hope. We know what truly is going on in his life is that of a reality, is basically fodder for reality TV. Lean into your villainy. And also, your wife, I don't think she even lives in Huntsville anymore. She may be doing, what's that name? Lisa, not Lisa, Meredith from Salt Lake that only flies in. And she's clocked out. She is so clocked out. Even trying to be a producer, she is clocked out. She's on some get back-ish, and she's clocked out. And the only way she's staying relevant now is she's getting ready to sue everybody. And I think there's so much more than what we've actually truly have been shown. When she was married to Martell, and her willingness or unwillingness not to show it, because he could pop up and show somebody. But since she had him arrested, I don't think we're going to be able to show it because of legal reasons. And then I ask, if you're not, why are you on the show? And why are they paying you? And why do you have a producer's credit if you're just going to be on some get back-ish and not show your real life? I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a millimeter. I'm not, and I'm basically, it's questionable if I'm even a raindrop, because the stuff that I'm seeing with this Kingdom Reign entertainment production, it's actually been very disappointing. I don't know. I may just take the Cliff Notes and whoever else and only see and be able to fast forward it, because that's one of the good things about actually recording it on YouTube TV at this time. I can fast forward through the nonsense. So I was shocked last night, or actually this morning, because I didn't watch it until this morning. I usually don't stay up for Married to Medicine because it's so boring, and it comes on at 9 o'clock, and I usually go to bed by 8, but I stay up later on Sundays, because not in anticipation of Monday, but because I stay up and I watch Real Housewives of Potomac. This ended crazy because it was actually interesting. And Dr. Heavenly's mess has set off another cast trip from hell. It was so pretty down in Key West. I've been down there a couple of times, and I really used to like Key West. I used to like all of Florida until the current shenanigans actually happened. But again, I digress. But I really wanted to see King or King, Quad's husband, who absolutely looks like a black Barbie doll. Quad Webb is gorgeous, by the way. I wanted to see King whip up on punk ass Dr. G's ass. I hate his voice. I hate him being a bully to every woman in his life. I'm sure Sweet Tea catches hell when she actually has to be alone with that fool. I wanted to see him get punched in the face. But Heavenly, how you going to invite Phaedra's ex-husband, and then Phaedra pretending that she won't be messy, inviting her new friend, who now we find out they on some Atlanta, Real Housewives of Atlanta-ish. How you going to say it's okay for him to bring his girlfriend? Actually, y'all were separated when he truly started dating Shireen. Don't get it twisted. And y'all were going to get divorced. You finally got divorced after you tried to play him. But again, I digress. She acts like nobody watched Real Housewives of Atlanta. You were on that bitch for 9 years. And you actually started dating somebody that you knew was in the Atlanta streets and was your ex-husband's friend. Girl, y'all just messy. But I was here for all of it. I was also here for the Real Housewives of Potomac, the reunion, because the fashion was giving everybody. I'm glad Mia went back from blonde to brunette. She looks better as a brunette. I think Jizzy allowed Cal to actually style her because she looked really stylish and snatched. The Ozempic is working, girl. Also, I loved even they just messy. The facial expressions, how Wendy clocked all the stupidity, how Karen was shady in the recovery center. Who does that? Karen Huger. And delusional. She's still delusional. I don't think she's taken any accountability because she says, I'm not an alcoholic. But you had a recovery center for what? And you didn't, and you basically tiptoed around and avoided. And then whenever it comes out, I'm going to be vindicated. How you going to be vindicated? You had to have known the extent because they have to do discovery. She had to have known how that looks. And I don't think she literally did not want them to confront her and her to actually have to explain her lack of being sober and explain so many things because she could have actually hurt herself and so many others by her decision to get behind the wheel drunk. Clearly out of control, clearly impaired, and she just tripped out that she did not want any and it was just a trip that she maybe because she did not know how to answer for that. That's why she was at a recovery center and she basically steered the narrative around from the obvious that she did not take any accountability for the tragedy that was that accident. And she didn't want to have to answer to her anyone for that. Also, she didn't show up because she didn't want to have to answer for that. And it was so, even the people that she thanked, even though they gave her grace and supported her the entire season, which it sounds like it's only 3 to 4 months, but at the whole year, even during that, she basically only thanked a few people that we never saw on air. Maybe that was the point. We saw the support she had on air, but in her mind, she didn't feel the support off air. But I can't really, I don't care to understand that. I don't think, because maybe she knew that the people that she didn't think would actually, with the exception of Stacey Rush and her dizzy self, would never have confronted her about what she was doing was dead ass wrong. So I don't know. I would feel sorry for her if she wasn't so delusional, and how her face was completely beat, her wig was straight, as she basically gave us again a delusional kind of thank you from the comforts of her house before she checked herself. And it's not even rehab, it's what she called a recovery center, because only drunks go to rehab, right? So I don't know. But Wendy clocked all the tea and looked really great doing it. And this is the type of reunion I live for. It seems like these women were more clocked in than they have been in seasons past. It was like all of them were not just showing up to get their check, that they were actually showing up and they were working. There was an air of freedom and they seemed to be enjoying themselves in this sphere, and it wasn't forced, it wasn't manufactured, except for Ashley and her crooked hair boyfriend, that toddler. Girl, kick him to the curb. Even Michael's drunk behind, I would prefer to see him than that perpetrating a fraud with this jump off that you're with now. I'm just saying that is manufactured, but what can you expect? Because everything she seems to do seems to be manufactured. I did not enjoy the poop fest or the poop bowl, but I love to see those little puppies. They were so stressed out. That's why they crapped all over the place. They just went puppy. And it didn't help with the exploding canyon. This was the season finale of Real Housewives of Potomac. But I can truly say I did enjoy this reunion. We got where Karen went. Jassy who was a friend of the Math Ain't Math, and yes, you were a side chick. And where is Jacqueline? Is she in jail or something? I thought she was a full time cherry blossom, but she did not show up. She could have actually had a place because Karen didn't show. But I guess Jacqueline is always a forever friend of. I don't think she had anything going on now. And it would be telling if she does not receive an invite to the reunion. It seems like Mia is spitting out. I think what was telling was Jacqueline said Mia during her birthday in Miami that she completely ghosted Stacey Rush and Jazzy and didn't invite the other women. She was more concerned about Ink and where he was versus anybody else. No shade, but true shade. And in true Mia form, she just seems to can't handle it when you actually confront her because she be lying. And it's spitting out of control because she can't remember. I don't know if she can't keep the story straight or she just can't remember. And then she doesn't have anybody to help her keep the story straight. The two people that could have helped her, one I think is off meds. That's her so-called not-so ex-husband. Ink ain't coming on because he don't want to actually probably answer for anything. And then where's Jacqueline? And she probably is tired of being her bodyguard and keeping it all together. So I don't know. I think she's the type of friend that is really difficult and it's very exhausting being a friend of Mia because you have to not only keep your ish together, you have to keep her ish together. And ain't nobody got time for that. You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take hood music out the girl. But I'm going to end this with a word, just as I started this podcast. Do or do not do. There is no try. And that's a word from Yoda. I hope I have conveyed just how much fun I have had in creating this podcast. I've got my mojo back. Just set your intention or reset your intention. It could be daily if necessary. Mine is peace. No mental dumping over here. If I'm acting like I'm not listening, I'm probably not. I'm not your therapist. I'm not a therapist. Keep the crazy to yourself, child. You do you and leave me be. The sooner you figure that ish out, the happy you will be. So this is what I want to convey in this podcast. And that wraps another of FAAFO Has a Fro. Join me next time as I throw shade and point out the shade and simply have fun. Y'all have a great new year. What, y'all? What?